Equal struggle raging between the poor and the powerful that the government would prefer the world didn't see. Dominic Waghorn.
I thought, well, are we really going to do this for this reason? And we did. Now, I'm saying things that some people would rather me not to say. But I am here to tell you that we're in a desperate situation. We're at what I call V1. How many pilots in here? Any pilots? V1 is when you're going down the runway and you've got to either take off or shut it down because you're running out of runway. All right? If you don't shut it down, you're going to crash at the end of the runway before you get off, and if you don't take off. So that's V1. Our civilization has been at V1 for about 75 years. Optimally, these technologies would have been out by 1925 to 1930, and they could have been. Seriously. By 1955, we were in a critical and urgent situation on a cosmic timescale. By 2004, we're getting long in the tooth. And I want to go through a little bit of history here for you, just so you know where I'm coming from. My mom's oldest brother, L. Macon Epps, was a senior project engineer to design the lunar module. So my family's an aerospace family, and I heard and learned of things when I was a little boy, about 8, 9, 10 years old, that you're not supposed to know about. Things that don't exist, but do.
797 here, you want 98? Loud and clear. 7, go ahead. I'm talking at 10 o'clock high. This is Houston. Say again, 7? I'm talking at 10 o'clock high.
An object which is at the same place all the time but appears to be tumbling. Always had it ever since yesterday. It just seems to be tagging along with us. Houston, this is Discovery. We still have the alien spacecraft under the turret.
October 21st, 1995.
We have an unidentified flying object.
And nothing after.
If this information has been out there, who's had it and why has it been kept secret? Well, what happened is that on the way out of World War II, and actually before it, there were technologies that were discovered of human origin that would easily replace the need for fossil fuels. By the time the early 50s came around, people like T. Townsend Brown and the Beefield-Brown effect had come across ways of annihilating mass inertia, mass effect, so-called anti-gravity, electrogravitic, electromagnetic systems. And I'm not going to go into the arcana of that. There are physicists here better than me to do that. I'm just a country doctor from Virginia. And I don't pretend to be a physicist. But what I will say is that we have the ability now to create a civilization free of all sources of pollution and free from roads between cities. Those could have been done in '55. When Eisenhower started the interstate system, the federal interstate highway system, we didn't need it. By the time it was conceived of, we already had the replacement for it. But he didn't have access. And Brigadier General Lubkin worked with Eisenhower in the last couple years of his term and said, you know, I watched the old man taking reports of these things.
The spirit is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
He knew that he had been denied access to the corporate-run military-industrial laboratory projects that had discovered the modus operandi, the functioning systems behind these things. And he said he was very upset about it. Eisenhower was shaken to his foundation. This is why when he left office in 1961, a 5-star conservative Republican president said,
Councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
beware of the military-industrial complex that will erode our securities and get out of control. It wasn't Abby Hoffman who said that. It was Ike Eisenhower, because he had already been stabbed in the back. He had been this close to seeing these technologies and then been denied access, as was Kennedy, as was Carter, as was Clinton, etc., and so on and so forth. The question becomes, who then is sitting on this stuff and why? There is a group, the core of them is about 25 to 50 people. There's a policy board of 200 or 300 people. About 50% of them now, 40 to 50%, favor what I've been recommending, and that's disclosing this information. That's the good news. The bad news is that the other 50% are the more rogue, violent elements, and they don't want it out. It is a battle, and I've been in the middle of it since 1990 in a fairly significant way, accidentally, on my way to the ER. By the way, I tell people now, I really miss being in the ER. And how twisted is that? But I say now that our patient has to be Gaia and her 6 billion children. Someone's got to take care of this earth. We are absolutely cannibalizing the planet that is our home when we have the solution sitting in a black box. I'm talking about what we as a people are doing to our home planet when we have the solutions locked away from us. Or to have an inventor. There may be an inventor in this room that has a breakthrough that my company is looking for. Courage, courage, courage. The indispensable element, courage. We had chairmen of committees in the Congress that I personally met with. People like Representative Dan Burton, who is chairman of the government, the House Reform and Oversight Committee for the government, who said, I want everything you have on this. I said, yes, sir. Give you everything we got. He gets visited, is told to stand down and shut up, and he does. People have been intimidated. And as Brigadier General Lufkin says, through the installation of abject fear, more than anything, this has been kept out of the public domain. Meanwhile, we're going over Niagara Falls without a canoe or a paddle or anything, not even a barrel. It's time to find our courage, and it's time to find our voice. And this is why the movement that they're wanting to create is so important. People need to know that technologies and sciences and physics that are way beyond anything that you can learn at MIT or Caltech have been around for decades, and they have been withheld from the public, not for national security reasons, but for reasons of greed, power politics, special interests, and what have you. And every generation that has inherited this problem has said, you know what, and I'm paraphrasing an admiral I met with, this is too big a fish for me to fry. I just want to retire and go fishing in Montana. Let someone else deal with it. And I have been with chairmen of committees, senators on the Intelligence Committee, personally briefed, sitting senators on the Intelligence Committee of the U.S. Congress, personally have briefed through numbers of people, all the senior people at the Pentagon. We're talking the head of Intelligence Joint Staff. We're talking the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. I have personally met with these people. Now, they all support the idea of the wonderful benefits that would redound to humanity by the release of this information and these technologies. But none of them want to go into the buzzsaw of the vast special interests who want to keep them secret.
Here's your list of charges. You hacked into the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Department of Defense, and NASA, amongst other things. Why?
I was in search of suppressed technology, laughingly referred to as UFO technology. I think it's the biggest kept secret in the world because of its comic value. But it's a very important thing. We've got old age pensioners can't pay their fuel bills. We've got countries being invaded to get award oil contracts to the West. And meanwhile, secretive parts of the secret government are sitting on suppressed technology for free energy.